Reimagining Success, episode 262. You're listening to the Reimagining Success podcast, where we help you design a business and a life that allows you freedom from the 9 to 5. I'm your host, Anna Lundberg, ex-corporate good girl, now a business mentor and coach, author, mum of 2, and I'm here to help you create more freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment. Now let's get started with redefining success outside of the 9 to 5. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to this month's interview. And this month I'm here with Karla Pamanes. Thank you so much, Karla, for your time. I'm looking forward as ever to hearing your story as much as I am to sharing it with the audience. So I'd love to start just very briefly with hearing what were you doing before, and then what are you doing today? And then we'll dig in a little bit more to the detail in a moment.
Of course. Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for having me here. So as far as what I was doing before going on my own, I went to school for graphic design. So I graduated with a degree in graphic design. And that's what I did for a little bit over, what would it be, like maybe 12 years. I did like 10 years in the corporate world. I was a graphic designer for a media networks company. So it was a parent company for a handful of cable network channels like HGTV, the Food Network, Travel Channel, and many other channels as they kept acquiring it. Even the company even acquired a European station. Oh my goodness, it's gone in my head. And if it comes back to me, I'll share. So I was there when I graduated. I had an internship with them. Someone came into my university. I studied in the University of Texas at El Paso, and someone came to talk about this company, and I was the only one who reached out to the woman who gave the presentation, and I asked for an internship opportunity. And they gave it to me. And after falling in love with Tennessee, because the company was in Tennessee, I was like, I really love it here. I would love to come back. And as I was about to finish my last semester in school, I emailed the department where I interned at, and I asked to see if they had a position for me. And they made a position for me. And I was like, okay, this is just amazing to have a job right out after college. But if something I learned from that time was that the opportunities that I had was because I asked for them. I think that was like key, just in general in my career as an employee, and also being on my own as an entrepreneur. And I was like, okay, I'll do a couple of years of experience. Long story short, the couple of years of experience turned to be 10 years with the company until Discovery Communications, so the parent company of Discovery Channel and all their channels, acquired the company, and I was let go with pretty much my whole department. And that's where the seed of entrepreneurship started. I think like I had always had it in my mind, like it had always been there. But in my mind, it was always like the side hustling. It was never like you go all in with entrepreneurship, because I didn't see that growing up. Like what I would see growing up, my dad had 2 jobs. I'm originally from Mexico. So I grew up in Mexico until I went to Texas for my university. I would always see my dad having like 2 jobs. And then my mom she was a teacher, both were teachers. And my mom is the one who would do the side hustle. So it would always, for me, it's like, if you want to make extra money, well, you side hustle and do something on the side. And she did tutoring, she handcrafts, she did like all these creative things. And I think like that's where I get part of like my creativity. So I kind of said to myself, like, well, maybe I'll learn how to freelance. We moved to Connecticut, and because that's where my ex-husband got an opportunity after Tennessee. And as I was trying to just figure out how to actually freelance, because, I don't know, you'll see people like, oh, there's freelance designers, but like nobody tells you actually how that works. And little did I know that freelancing, it actually means like you're running a business. So it's not just like taking a couple of gigs, it's like you're running a legit business. And as I was trying to figure out this freelancing thing, I kept applying for jobs, and then I found an agency job, and it was very short-lived. With just a little bit over a year, COVID hit, and I was the first person to be laid off. And that's it was good to have experience, even if it was a short time in the agency world as well. And from then, I was like, I think this is a sign. Also, I went to Mexico to quarantine with my parents, and my dad passed away while we were there. And I was just so fortunate to be there to support my mom. And that's where I just knew like I couldn't go back to a desk job, because I really wanted that flexibility to be there for her when she needed me, and to just be able to figure out this on being on my own. So what I built is a design agency, using my strengths and my skills to try to help entrepreneurs and with their brands, and just elevating their brands through all the things that I've known and learned through my years in corporate and in the agency. So that's pretty much like how it started and how it's going. Although there's also that part of the big motive and what's the word, purpose. I think like after losing my dad, that's what gave me really the courage to just really believe in myself, because he was about to turn, he was 10 days short to turn 70 years old, and I was about to turn 35 that year. And I was like, I asked myself, if this is the middle of my life, what I really want to do I want to just keep going with emotions and doing the thing that they tell you, that everybody tells you to do, and just go the safe route? Or should I really just believe in myself and go all in my business? At this time, I had already had my business as a side hustle for 2 years, and I have had like a little momentum. But I think it was important to have that, because that's where I planted a lot of seeds that then later on, when I went full time, I started to harvest all those relationships that I had built, all those little things that I did to get the business started. And I think mindset was the biggest thing.
But let me just pause there for a moment, because there's already so many themes I want to pick up on that are really powerful. First of all, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad, and so glad that, as you said, you had the freedom and flexibility to be there to support your mother. And of course, you also had the negative redundancy of COVID and so on. And it's interesting how these very sad and unattractive, unappealing events like a pandemic being fired and that kind of thing can actually trigger something, almost force you into making the decision that's really right for you. But it's just, as you said, it's courageous and it's quite a tricky one to take. So sometimes we almost need that extra little nudge. I loved what you said about the intentionality and about you asking for what you want, because I think we can get quite passive, especially in corporate. We're waiting to be told what's the next step. You're kind of following the ladder, I guess, is the traditional metaphor. I remember, so I told you a few moments ago, I quit my job 10 years ago. That started because I asked for a sabbatical to travel 3 months across South America. And that was from a conversation. I had lunch with someone and I was like, oh, I wish I could go traveling. And they said, well, why don't you? I was like, huh? Of course. And I asked and I got it. And, the rest is history, and I've never looked back. So I think that's a really powerful message for anyone listening, that, if you don't ask, you don't get. Certainly, it's not to say that you're always going to get what you ask for, but you have that freedom and autonomy to ask for that. And the final thing I want to pick up on was the culture, I guess, and the the stories we hear and see from our family. Because as you said, if you've seen both your parents, juggling different jobs and so on, no one has sort of the entrepreneurialism. For me too, my parents both had, well, to be honest, funny enough, my mum was kind of freelance, but I never thought of that. It was, the path was very much, okay, university job, that was the expectation. So yeah, it's funny how your particular upbringing and the education you have and the things you see around you really color what you believe is possible. And can I ask you, because the podcast is called Reimagining Success, and when you were on the graphic design path, I guess, how did you see success then? And then secondly, fast forward to now, what does success look like for you today?
I think at the beginning, success meant just making enough money to be on my own, right? To not it was just monetary, because that felt like the hardest thing, try to just create that money, create that on my own. And I think it was through my dad passing away and just seeing how much that it was much more than the money, that it was about the lifestyle and about the freedom of owning my time. And that was huge, because before I made the full decision of going on my own, I was claiming unemployment, and it came to a point that it was the very end. Either I had to extend it or just say okay, I'm not going to extend it anymore. I'm just going to focus 100% on growing my business. I had this interview for a remote position, because I was like, okay, well, if I get to have a job, at least it'd be a remote position. So I had this interview, and even though the position was remote, they were expecting me to be in my computer sitting down from 8 to 5. And so it just still felt like they own my time, which is totally fine, right? That's usually the norm. And I just knew I couldn't go back to that anymore. I wanted the freedom of living, getting out of my desk and go pick up my son without asking permission to anyone. If my mom needs to go to the doctor, I just block my calendar and then I do that. I now schedule work around my life and not the other way around, how it was for many, many years. And although I'm grateful for that, because I learned so much from that. And so now how success looks for me, it's this beautiful lifestyle about if I need, I just came back from Mexico. I spent 6 weeks over there. And I just bring my computer, and that's bringing work with me. And I get to decide how much of a workload I can take, because I want also to enjoy my time over there and be there with my mom, and then just do fun things with my son and with family and cousins. So yeah, success really now means my freedom, although with all this freedom comes a lot of responsibilities. And being diligent and smart with my time. And there's always, something's gotta give, but it's so I think I feel like I've never worked so hard in my life, but it's just so fulfilling. And it not necessarily has to be the hard labor work. I think it's a lot of mental work. It's always, there are hard things as far as pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I remember the first time I did a podcast interview, it was so hard for me. So it just felt so nerve-wracking and just difficult. And that's the hard part of it. It's sometimes it's just the no-ness until it becomes easy.
It's sort of the two sides of the coin. You've got the freedom, which is the amazing piece, but there's also, as you said, the responsibility and in fact, freedom. The other side of freedom is that you have to make the decisions. It's all on you, right? The free time, it means, well, actually, you need to decide what you're going to do with your time, and the challenging yourself, getting out of your comfort zone. That's what we want, but it means you have to get out of your comfort zone and challenge yourself. So it's sort of, you've made this intentional decision, and now you have to live with it. And you mentioned earlier mindset as well, and now you talked about that stepping outside of your comfort zone. So what have been the biggest challenges, would you say, in making this shift?
I think there have been many. I consider myself an introvert, and I think it's still like the story I tell myself, because some people would not believe that, but I think it has been the growth of just keep pushing myself and putting myself out there. I mean, I just came back from a conference of 2,000 people, and I didn't feel sick in my stomach as the very first meetup that I joined as like a business owner, and that would have felt like a safe space. It was all like mom entrepreneurs. I think like it would be like maybe 50, and I just felt like I wanted to go because it just felt so uncomfortable. So I think a lot has to do with my social skills. That has been like one of the hardest things that I have to work. Just communication as well. Like I mentioned before, going on a podcast, like the first time that I was invited on a podcast, I just wanted to back out, and she's like, no, we're just gonna go with it, and it's just a conversation. And I'm like, okay. And I survived it, and I never listened back to it. But I did it. And then after that, it just became easier. And then the whole, I always say, the best thing about being an entrepreneur is that you're your own boss, but that's also the worst thing. It's like you need to make all the decisions. You need to prioritize things. You don't have no one telling you what to do. I mean, you can always have guides, like, you can have coaches or mentors or staff that can help you make decisions. But at the end of the day, you are the one who's driving the ship, and that's huge. So I would say those have been the hardest one. Oh, and I think I mentioned mindset. Ooh, that has been like the biggest one. And I think it's something that I just still have to work on having a growth mindset and positive thoughts that things will work out. Because like we mentioned about how we were raised or childhood, like sometimes we are so set into the world that we grew up with, or what we thought it was true. But I always say, like, if you see someone doing something that you like to do, that's just a proof that it's possible for you too. You just need to find a way to make it happen for you too. But that's the proof of concept. Like, if they're doing it, you can do it too. And that's how it all started with me too. Like, once I saw people doing the thing that I wanted to do, specifically in graphic design, which is brand design, logo design, and helping create the visual parts of a brand, I was like, this is my favorite thing to do in graphic design. And then I was just see how is that they handle their business, how they package their services. I was like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it too. And then, it's always like that. And then just keep pushing yourself into the next level. And I think that's also a hard one, because the next level is a horizon. Like, it just keeps getting farther and farther and farther. And I've learned to embrace the today, right? Not just sticking with trying to just always get to the next level and not enjoying what I am creating right now, because I'm always giving myself like bigger and bigger goals. So yeah, I think there are many other things.
Yeah. It's so much more. We think it's the strategies, and I come from a brand marketing strategy side, and I think we always think, oh, this is what we need. I need you to tell me the strategy, and of course that's important. And yet it's a lot of the mindset. And as you say, you're your own boss, so you're now in charge of your own development. And again, it's the growth and the comfort zone that all comes together. Anything that started out being really scary, once you've done it, I think once it's taking the leap that's scary, right? Whether it's starting your business or doing the podcast, going to the event, as soon as you're flying, you're like, wow, this is fine. That becomes then part of your comfort zone. Unfortunately, because I think a lot of us are that kind of person, we're then on to the next challenge. And I think it's important then to celebrate, look back, see how far we've come, and then by all means, keep raising the bar. But I think it is important to say, my goodness, a few years ago, I didn't even know what freelancing was, let alone, what it would take. And I'm speaking on this stage and I'm on podcasts and so on. You mentioned briefly your agency and so on. So what's the business model? Do you have a big team? What's the setup for you?
I have, it's me and a designer, which she's my niece. I also, all my team are contractors. So I also work with a copywriter who not only helps me, but also my clients when we develop websites. And I have a virtual assistant and a bookkeeper. I love that it's all women in my business, like women entrepreneurs. So yeah, I've never thought about like even hiring for help. Like I was like, always that's another like scary thing. And it was until I had a mentor who mentioned like, hi, why don't you like hire someone from your hometown, like, or from your home country? And the first thing that I said, I think that's going to be really hard. And until I just posted on my Facebook and I had like all these leads, and then I had my niece who was about to graduate. And then I was like, well, I really wanted someone who's like more senior. And it all just worked out. Like, but just trusting, and even like I gave her the opportunity, and it's been great to have a family member in my team and help her, like employ her and just give her like all those opportunities that I wish I had just right after graduating. Because I felt like I did a lot of like kind of like not so exciting things at the beginning, like and just right off the bat, like I was giving her all these opportunities. I had my previous employer, like Discovery, as a client. So she was designing like logo designs for TV shows, like on just right after college. And it's so funny because I didn't see it as something like super exciting because that's where I came from. But like for her, it was like the biggest thing. For me, it was like, I just want to have like, for me, like the entrepreneurs, it was like something a little bit more exciting. But because it was just so common for me, not like the media industry. So it's been such a fun ride. And so that's the model is we offer 3 core signature packages: logo design, brand identity design, and then brand and website. So that's usually what people come to us. We also don't advertise this, but this is also something that we do also on the side. It's graphic design services. So we have a retainer that's a Jewish nonprofit, and recently we just signed up with a big cereal company. I don't know if we can talk about it just yet, but yeah, like there's still people that come and look for us for graphic design services, and that's even though like we don't advertise that keeps coming from word of mouth. I
think that's often the case, isn't it? You're focusing on a particular area, but of course, you build that word of mouth, as you said, and you have the referrals from existing. And it's not to say that just because you're focusing on a particular niche proactively, you can't do the other work. I love how you said you're living your values and you're building a business, based on working with women from your home country, family, and that you don't have to. I think when you hear agency and you think business, it's got to be like physical premises and a whole team. You've got to hire people, and here you've got to put them on the payroll. And the fact that you can work flexibly still is really nice. I have clients who then work with parents, often mums perhaps who are working part-time. So there are some really nice ways to do it. You don't have to sort of go offshore or whatever it is that might feel uncomfortable. And you mentioned word of mouth there, and obviously you've spoken, you've been on podcasts. How do you build your personal brand? What is it you do to market your own business?
I'm I do a couple of things. I send a monthly newsletter to my list. And then that I repurpose that as a blog. I also am active on social media, and what people like about mostly my Instagram, because that's where my favorite place, and it's all sent back to Facebook as well. Is that I not only show the work side of things, but also the personal side of things as the single mom, um, cat mom, and yeah, we just lost our 17-year-old cat this weekend, and it's like, I mean, I share that with in my Instagram. People, it's like I feel like people know me and my cats, and it's like I just go a little bit beyond just the brand, the services. And networking has been a huge one. Like, keeping in touch with people I know, getting to know other people. Like, I just came back from the conference, and it's like being proactive about those connections that I just have, and sending a message and trying to just keep in touch with people. Like, growing my network has been what felt one of the scariest things, and now I really just love doing it because I just love people. I love learning the stories. I love getting to know them, and with the internet, it just makes it way easier too. Like, I also I went to meet a student of mine, because I also teach others how to become brand designers. So I met a student of mine, and we mentioned about how we feel like we've known each other because of the internet, and it just felt like we know each other, but we hadn't met in person. And I think, like, for me, that's like the most beautiful thing about like sharing your strengths. For me, like in this service side, getting to know other entrepreneurs, helping them elevate their brands. And then with education, it's helping others, teaching them everything I know. Like, I've learned from over 15 years of experience, and trying to make an easier path for them. Like, it took me 15 years. I learned like it really didn't have to take me that long, but that's how it was my path. And then after realizing, well, I can make this path easier for others, I really want them to know how they can make this happen for themselves. And that's where the education part also came. Also, it came from keeping the legacy of my dad alive, because he was an educator. And after he passed away, like, a lot of students came and reached out and shared like beautiful stories of how he helped them beyond academics. And I was like, if I can do this, it was still in my mind. I wanted to do this course, but it was until he passed away that I find the courage to do it. Because we all know it, but it's like, until you leave it, it's that we are not here forever, that we don't have tomorrow guaranteed. So it's like, that's where I just found the courage. Just like, even if it feels hard, I really want to do it. And if I can impact at least one person, and I did it. And now the next thing is how to amplify it.
Gosh, it's so important, isn't it? And unfortunately, it takes those personal tragedies to remind ourselves of an obvious, life is short message, which seems like a cliche, but it's so true. And with the mundane realities of getting on with our lives and taking out the trash and paying the bills and stuff, we tend to forget what really matters. And unfortunately, yes, it's often sad circumstances that prompt us, but thank goodness, and what a beautiful legacy that you can then continue that educational spirit as well. And I think it's a great business model always to both deliver a service and then also kind of have that diversification of teaching. And you mentioned, obviously, we talked about traveling to see your family in Mexico and your son as well. And one of my favorite areas is work-life integration, or work-life balance, as some people call it. So what does your kind of day-to-day look like? If you don't mind us prying a little bit, how many days a week do you work? How do you manage this kind of 6 weeks traveling? What does that kind of juggle look like for you?
I love, and I'm gonna even write that down, I love how you said integration, because it feels more like that. Because there's no such thing as balance, in my opinion. There's seasons of where I working a lot, and I don't usually that will be also in the weekdays, right? Like it's a lot of work. And even though my son will come home at 3:30 from the bus, he's here, but we're not bonding because he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing, I'm still working until I don't know, will be like 6, sometimes even 7, or sometimes I will just stop work and then just be with him, do whatever he needs to do, like karate and have dinner and help with homework. And then I will finish work at night when he's asleep. So how a typical day works, it's during the weekdays, he goes to school super early, like 7:30. And if I have something pressing that needs to go out, especially if I don't want to do it, I will wake up at 5 a.m. and do like a 5 to 6 power hour of just work, especially work that I don't want to do. And that's like just get it at least started the first thing in the morning. And then after I drop him from school, I will just stay outside. And I'm like, I'm already outside. I'm going to go and take a walk. And then I go for like a 40-minute walk. I have to force myself. I don't love exercising, but it's so good. Like when I never regret not taking a walk. So the first thing I do is like do a 40-minute walk, and then I start my day. So usually everything start working at 9. It really depends. Like if I have a lot of calls, like I mentioned, he comes at 3:30, and from there it just everything starts. Like I try to do everything pressing before he comes from school, because I know it's a distraction just having him here, so it's hard to just stay focused. Then we'll do karate and dinner and all those things. I religiously take Saturdays off, and then Sunday I like to work a couple hours in my business. And just get everything started and plan and organize. But we also, like I always say, like I work hard, but we also play very, very hard. And we love to travel. And I try to just keep things when I travel, just do the most important things that I have to do in my business. I don't think it's rare that I completely disconnect from my business. But at least like I talk to my clients and let them know that I'm going to be out. It really depends, but there's always like something like an email or something. But like in the summer, I do like to take at least 2 weeks, as much off as possible. And December, the same thing, 2 weeks, as much as I can, to the bare minimum, just like little emergencies and just being there, like whatever needs to be finalized, right? Because it's hard to just control with the client load. So that's pretty much how it works.
And I think it's such a personal thing, isn't it? And it's so easy to judge and to say, oh, this is right, this is wrong. And it's really about the intentionality again of how you do it and why. I've now not been working hardly for a month because it was sort of holiday, and then my daughter started school, moved house. I'm just thinking now, as we wrap up our call, I'll probably need to do an hour or something this evening, which I wouldn't usually do. I'm usually too tired, and after kids' bedtime, and it's important to be with my partner and whatever else. But for me, that then has meant that I've been able to take a month off. Now I have a little bit more to catch up on. Sometimes someone might need to pick up an email on Friday. For you, working Sunday is okay. For someone else, it's a religious day they take off, So I think the most important thing, and I think what corporates are struggling with now, is that it's so individual, so personal, that it's hard to kind of have a blanket rule. But the beauty, of course, of having our own businesses is that we can do what we want. We can choose to work with clients who respect those boundaries, and usually people do. And if we choose to work with people who share our values and so on, then that's something that they do respect. And Karla, it's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I'd love to hear more. Where can we find you? You said Instagram perhaps is your main channel. How can we find you on Instagram?
Instagram, I'm at Karla.Pamanes. Everything is Karla Pamanes. My email is Karla@KarlaPamanes.com, and my website is KarlaPamanes.com. Thank you, Anna, for having me here.
Such a pleasure. Such a beautiful story to hear about how you've shifted and the lifestyle that you built now. As you said, putting life before work. It's definitely a philosophy that I very much agree with and heartily support. So I'm sure there were lots of nuggets there, inspirational, wherever the audience is on their journey today. So thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you, Anna.
There is so much incredible information out there that's going to help you build and grow your business. However, what is missing from all this is the personalized feedback, support with troubleshooting, and tailored guidance that's really designed to help you in your particular situation with your specific challenges. Introducing the Business Incubator, a mentoring program focused on exactly that: implementation, support and accountability to help experienced corporate professionals like you grow your expert business faster without sacrificing your personal life to do so. You'll get expert guidance and personal feedback to help you focus on the right things at the right time, comprehensive training materials and frameworks to support you, but above all, you will get weekly structure and accountability to help you identify your priorities, stay focused and review your progress. And you'll get a supportive community of people who get it, who are going to cheer you on and share their lessons learned. So this is a really unique hybrid program that gives you the intimacy of one-to-one support, the training, frameworks and structure of a course, and that community element of a group program. You can read more and apply now at onestepoutside.com/grow. That's onestepoutside.com/grow.